How many of you feel that digitizing the shop floor is possible? Thank you. How many of you think that it is just simply impossible? Thank you. So thank you for your time this morning, and we'll do our best to make it worth your time. By the end of this morning's session, we hope to inspire you to embark on this journey and begin to chart your course in digitizing your shop floor. My name is Kenneth from Mesa Worldwide, and we are the sales partners of the Malaysian Smart Factory. We would like to make this session as interactive as possible this morning, and do send in your questions in the chat box. We have our speakers are waiting eagerly to take those questions by the end of the session. All right. Don't worry, it will be very easy questions to take. Thank you. So today we have an industry practitioner to share his journey in digitizing his shop floor. Mr. Loong graduated in a Bachelor of Mechanical and Material Engineering degree from UKM in 1995 and obtained a Master's in Business Administration from the University of Surrey, United Kingdom in the year 2000. He has more than 20 years of experience in manufacturing operations, covering aspects of operations management, production planning and control, machine and facility maintenance, quality management, logistics procurement, occupational health and safety, tool and die design and development. His previous work experience includes Tanchong Motor Assemblies, Wawasan TKH, and since 2013 at the New Home Flight Group. Let's welcome Mr. Loong to the screen. Let me stop sharing first. Sorry. All right, Mr. Loong, sorry, the screen is yours.
Thank you, Kenneth, for your kind words. Okay, let me share screen. All right, is the screen on?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So without further ado, okay, let's start the webinar today. So today I'm here to share some of the things that we have done in the factory. It's definitely a beginning, not an end. We still have a long journey to go. Okay. Before we go on, let me do a brief intro on the company. Okay, what we do so that we know how, in what context the project was actually implemented on. So we actually do automotive replacement body parts. So that would include metal parts like doors, hoods, and so on, and also plastic bumpers, headlamps, grills, and so on. Now, this business actually is a little bit different from what we normally know as an OEM, where you have the original equipment manufacturers. Those they produce the cars and produce the parts for them. We specifically do for replacement market only. And because of that, it is a very high mix and a low volume industry. We also export 50% of our products, which makes it a little bit competitive, and quality requirement wise is international quality standard wise. Right, so that with the company, let's go on to digital transformation. Everything has to start with a roadmap. And so my first slide is also a roadmap. This is a 10-point roadmap. Thank you, SHRDC, for this roadmap, which we found it very useful, and we're actually practicing it until now. But before we go on to the roadmap, I think first we have to do some soul searching first. First, what are we trying to solve in the first place? You know, digital transformation is just a tool. It's something that everyone is talking about, but do we need to go there, and why do we need to go there? So I'll just go through a few of the points that we are trying to solve now. Man problem. I think every manufacturing company faces difficulty in recruiting. And if you are able to recruit, the second big hurdle will be retention. That is also another impossible thing. Why? Somehow or another, the new generation, they seem uninterested in manufacturing works, you know. It's no longer sexy like those days, you know, when I was young, when I was in school, when the teacher will ask, what is your ambition? They'll say doctor, engineer, lawyer. Now I doubt that is the same thing anymore. So, you know, the job is no longer sexy and it's not easy. With the minimum wages coming in, you know, all jobs are paying the same. Why not stay in a shopping mall, doing sales assistant, you know, rather than starting it out in the plant? Another area that we are looking at is machines. Manufacturing boomed about 30 to 50 years ago. I think that was the major investment by manufacturing companies. And because the major investment was then, a lot of our equipment, they are now 20, 30, 40 years old. So they become legacy machines. When legacy machines, technology-wise is limited. So if we want to further move forward, we want to further enhance the equipment, it's not so easy. Then we talk about material. Material development, technology-wise, has been so great. There are so many evolutions, with 3D printing and so on. But in order to be able to maximize this, you need knowledge, in-depth knowledge, and also very good control. And of course, not forgetting the method, consistency is important. Quality is utmost important now. Why? Because the world is getting smaller. I think it's what we call as the era of the power of the buyer. Power of the buyer is the ability to source. You are able to find suppliers for anything and everything, and from anywhere and everywhere. And with the logistics, of course, now the logistics are having some issues because of the COVID. But before that, logistics was very easy. It's a matter of waiting for, let's say if you buy something from Lazada and Shopee, it takes you a week before the product comes, and you can find things that you've never been able to find locally now. Now, all these actually are the reasons, the things that we are trying to solve, why we want to move into there. So how to overcome this? The environment side, to fulfill your customer, the survival of the fittest, the only way you can do is you have to make sure that we ourselves are efficient operationally. We are able to control all processes that we produce, hence ability to be able to deliver to the customer. But that is not enough. You can throw in the human, you can throw in all the investment there, but is the business sustainable? So that is the second part. Business must be sustainable and must be profitable. Fortunately, that's life. The business must make money, so for us that we can actually further expand. And now, the only way to move forward with the aging equipment, with the new generation who are interested, is to have a visible shop floor. Why visible shop floor? Quality and productivity is important because you need to attract and employ the next generation of workers. So with all these things in mind, we have more or less come up with our own project internally, which is very obvious, reducing total costs, improving productivity and quality, but with an enabler called digital transformation. So that is for internally. We know that digital transformation is an enabler, something that can point you in the direction, but at the end of the day, you need to do the work to be able to solve the problems. Okay, now understanding where we are, the current situation, and what we are trying to solve will bring us to our journey. Now, this is when our journey actually begins, which will bring us back to the roadmap. Once again, thank you SHRDC for the roadmap. Let's look at the first 3 points. I've been asked multiple times, leadership buy-in, how was it? Was it tough? Was it difficult? Kenneth asked me this multiple times. So at the point he asked me, I just say, no, it wasn't difficult. But when I think back, I actually started pushing for digital transformation in 2018. Now we are in 2021, end of 2021, and it's the 4th year. So I have already forgotten what we are, what Malaysians are very common in. We always forget the difficult parts. But when I think deeply, I've been pushing this for 4 years, and we've had multiple barriers, multiple things that we need to do. But that, I think we will come to it later. But let's go on. I think in the first thing that we need to do is understand what is the scope that we are trying to do. Okay, so we borrow this from MITI, the national policy, the industry forward policy. There are 11 pillars altogether, but we try to be more focused. So we focus on things like Internet of Things. Legacy machines require digitization. They may come with PLCs, but the PLC's line diagram, all those are lost. You need to be able to digitize them. And once you digitize them, then only do you have an opportunity for data acquisition, which will lead to the next pillar that we want to do is big data analytics. Okay. In short, we want to do data automation, connect the machines, and collect enough data for big data. And having the live data actually does help, because what we want to achieve is visualization, as we mentioned earlier. And visualization for what? Operational decision making. That's important. If you know where you are at this point of time, you can make the right decision. It's not you know where you are at the end of the day, as in any other operations. You have a daily report. It is shift report. That's a bit too late. You can make live decisions, operational decisions then. And the second part is collect sufficient data for analysis and also analytics. And continuous improvement is unavoidable. So in order to move forward, you need data. Okay, with that in mind, we know where we want to go, so we build our objectives. It's very similar to what the 5 points that I pointed out earlier. First, increase productivity. In order to increase productivity with the same resources currently that you have, the man, the machine, the method and the material, you need to be able to identify and then practice the optimal working range. You can work very fast, but workers will tend to get tired at the end of the day. It's not optimal. And when they get tired, they make mistakes. That's even worse. So you need to be able to identify an optimal working range for all 4 components. And then once you have an identified optimal working range, then you can talk about using real data to make decisions on the spot. So data-driven shop floor. So we would also want to reduce downtime. Downtime comes in many factors, but what we focus specifically actually more is on the breakdown. By the ability to collect data, we can actually have condition monitoring, equipment condition monitoring, and by then we'll be able to see more trends, analyze and eventually come up with predictive maintenance. And finally, in my aspect, I think this is the most important, the key point of it actually is develop in-house talent and technology. Why? Sustainability, I think, is the key point here. If you are able to customize, if you understand the technology, if you build the technology yourself, you are able to upscale it in the future. Upscaling means snowballing it, yokoten it, duplicating to the next line, and taking it to the next level, because I believe that this is not the end. There will be further development. Okay, with that, this is our objectives to reduce total cost by improving quality and productivity. Of course, obviously, the next step will be to have a project paper, project name. We have actually identified specific line. We've identified what we want to improve. OE is a very standard measurement, and we stick to the measurement. And important part is once you've identified the project, in our case, we've identified a stamping line to implement this project, is to understand what are the current barriers. I've listed down 3 main barriers here. The first barrier is actually inaccurate data. Now, I wouldn't say that it is a sabotage inaccurate data, but data sometimes inputted by human beings, whether it's your engineer, whether it's supervisor, or whether it's the worker, it can be generalized. So, example, I will ask my engineer, what time did the line start yesterday? 8 o'clock. Without thinking, it will come 8 o'clock. But in actual fact, it could have started. The machines started at 8:10, 8:10, 8:09, 8:07. But because it is a reflective answer, and hence, because of this, he would have inputted that the time started at 8 o'clock. So when you come to analysis, these are things that you are unable to pick up. Whatever that you have inability to measure, you cannot solve. So my belief is we need to be able to measure accurate data. Another thing is the second part is minor and random downtime. This is also another small things that we see. Everything went well, the equipment, no breakdown, parts supply, upstream supply was fine. But how come we did not get our output? Why? Because there are multiple small stops and small losses along the way. An example, a worker trying to pull out the part, it's a bit stuck, so he's to run around, get a hammer, bring it in, release the part, It takes easily a few minutes. Does he record that down? No. I don't think any supervisor would be able to do that. Even like you want to go to the toilet, you ring the bell, wait for the replacement person to come in. So these are all downtime. These are all waiting time, and all these small stops are not recorded. If it's not recorded, you cannot solve it. And the third one, of course, is unplanned breakdown. This part here, I think most manufacturing companies would be proud to say that they have their daily checklist. They'll go through the oil level, everything. But this is one-point data, and one-point data means you do it at your own convenience. So most of the plants would actually implement daily checks at the beginning of the shift, at the end of the shift, or at the end of the day. But it's one point that represents the whole day, and most of the time when they are checking, the machine is not running. So which means you do not capture data when it is under different loads, where different time of the day, when it's the afternoon, hydraulic oil, it can be hotter, it can be warmer then. So one-point data just doesn't cut it now, because when we want to do predictive maintenance, we need consistent and constant data. So hence, our approach is to actually digitize the line, have continuous machine data, and of course, coupling with the CCTV, because if we see some gaps in the data, we can actually confirm. So it's a check and balance, the CCTV. And our target improvements is looking at changeover improvement, and also all these small losses and stops. These are low-hanging fruits. Let's get rid of it. The second part is installing relevant sensors to do consistent or continuous monitoring of the equipment. Once we have enough data, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year data, we can look at multiple dimensions and start doing big data analysis for predictive maintenance. So this is our plan. Okay, the next one will actually be our Gantt chart. This is what, if you look at it, it's a 1-year project, a very small line, but it's a 1-year project. We started in January, lots of hoo-ha, then we get buy-in in February, then we start talking about getting in the budget. I think one very long period here, you can see that is the training. This actually went across 5 months. This is the bulk of the project time. However, so it is time well spent. What we are trying to do is an in-house development, meaning that we develop the programs ourselves, we develop the hardware ourselves. By doing that, we have understanding of every single item that's put in, and able to manage all the scenarios that's ever possible. So now we are actually phase 1 completed. Our line is measuring OE. I'm proud to say the team did well. We have already achieved our first OE target. Now we are in the second part where we actually have installed sensors, developing the program and connecting the sensors in so that we will be able to collect the 6 months data. This is our current situation. Just a little bit highlight on what I'm talking about. This is one of our plants, one of our 6 plants. We are only taking a small area, so this time around we're very conservative. Just take a small area. Let's try a lighthouse project. It's a stamping line consisting of 3 stamping machines. We put in the relevant sensors, put in the relevant CCTVs and the monitoring unit. And from here, we've started collecting our OE data. Okay, I'm sure everyone, I think every time I present this, the few times I presented this, they will be asking, what is your project costing? That's very interesting, right? I always scratch my head also as well, because when I hear people talk about digital transformation, they are talking about hundreds of thousands, some comes to $1 million and so on. But when my engineers tell me that, hey, boss, I only need 23,000 for hardware. So I say, in the beginning, I would say, are you sure you got this right? Are you sure with 23,000, I will be able to digitize my stamping line? They say, yes, boss, can. All right, so okay, so we leave it at this. And true enough, they actually just used 23,000 to do the first phase. But a big cost that we feel that it is important for us is because the in-house training. In-house training, this is the method that we use. We want to actually train our workers so that they will, you've heard the saying, we believe in building the people so that the people can build the business. So this is an exact replica. We want to build the people so that the people can actually build the processes and the business moving forward. A bit high, but please rest assured, most training costs, if you contribute to HRDF, it's normally SPR claimable. So our total investment here, including training, is about 118,000. With our current condition or current achievement, the simple payback is just above 1 year. So, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Okay. All right. Our results. I will show you the physical part of it. As if you had gone with a system integrator or a consultant, what they will tell you, they will interview you. They will see the line. They will draw a lot of process flow and so on. But at the end of the day, they will come to a line and they will install a black box, which you cannot open. Even if you open, you don't know what's inside. So I'm proud to say now that we have our own gray box. This is something that we developed on our own. Doesn't look very complicated. It's just a gateway, a power supply, and multiple relays. I think most electrical engineers or technicians will know this. We have our own gray box. I'm very happy to say that. We have our own dashboard. Now, the beauty about being able to do your own dashboard is you can actually customize it. if you have gone through an integrator or a consultant, they'll probably give you the generic dashboard that's available, and customizable maybe once or twice. But for us, we can change dashboards every day. We can have a dashboard. In this case, you look at this, it's cycle time, change over time. This is important for analysis. But what about on the line? We can have another dashboard on the line, something that's more visual that you can see from far, that you see a great problem. Let's go for that. These are things that we can do because we have chosen the path of training our internal group of people, and then develop our own small little gray box and have some output in terms of dashboards. Okay, I think that will lead me to my thank you slide. Kenneth has warned me to keep this one short, so I have tried my best. So I will pass it back to Kenneth now, and Dr. Chua.
Thank you so much, Mr. Loong. Thank you for keeping it within the 20 minutes as well. Wow, fantastic, actually. Very on the spot as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, so what will happen now is we have a quick Teh Tarik, right, between Mr. Loong and of course Dr. Chua, right? And after that, then we'll open up the session for Q&A as well. What we call it is an AMA. Ask me anything as well. So what will be interesting is please do ask your questions, and if you have any questions, please do chat in the box. I know Malaysians are a bit shy, so if you are a bit shy, so you can chat, or if you want to ask your questions, please ask away as well. All right, but please put your hands up. We would like to see your handsome or beautiful face on the screen as well, and please ask a question. All right, thank you so much, Dr. Chua and Mr. Loong. The screen is yours.
Right. Thank you very much, Kenneth. It's it's really good to have Mr. Loong here to share his really good experience and his success in digitizing his shop floor as a good step and a beginning. So, Mr. Loong, thank you very much for your presentation. Right. I can see very good improvements from where we started off this journey together with you, and we are always happy to support you. Now, just a few questions on my end. I'm going to keep it casual since Kenneth said this is a Teh Tarik 4.0, right? So was it really difficult process in getting the management to buy in? Because you have your cost on the hardware, which is quite detailed, and then we have the cost on upskilling your team. Right. So in terms of this cost, right, initial cost, was it difficult to get your management to buy in to start this project?
Okay, thanks, Chen. Thanks for the question. Fortunately for me, like in all SPMs and STPMs, there was soalan bocor. So because it was soalan bocor, I had some time to prepare a few more slides. So Kenneth, if you don't mind, nowadays Teh Tarik Mama also have their own screen there. So can we continue a few more slides? Can. All right. Okay. Okay. I think Dr. Chua Shen, he actually, yeah. Okay. His questions was it difficult? Now, I'm going to share something about AGP. I think in every management, you have to exhaust what is with your current resources first. If you have exhausted everything and there's no way to move forward, they are all willing to actually invest in. So that's what happened to us. We have to make sure our shop floor is tip-top first. And how to do that? We use the lean way. So we have we introduced lean in 2015. We had multiple priorities. So we started introduction of lean in 2015. We move on to step 1 and then step 2. Okay, now, this is the general building block for lean. Step 1 was reasonably easy because it's 5S, 7 ways, standardized work. Easy because it was a top-down activity. So anything we say, everything we want goes. No questions asked. Then we move into step 2. Step 2 is when we started facing issues. Why? In order for step 2 and step 3 eventually to be successful, it has to be a bottom-up activity. Bottom-up activity requires a lot of data, requires a lot of accurate information to make decisions on. So hence, with this understanding, we have gone through, we have done what we can. This is the point where we talk to management that there is already a need. We have already understood my 5 issues, the 4M plus 1E. And with that, we come up with a proposal to move on. Now, come up with a proposal to move on. This is the second part. Sorry, I go a little bit further. Hey, coming back to the 11 pillars again. When we started, as in any Malaysian, I believe we are all Malaysians, we'll want to cover as many as possible. So the first proposal was not all 11, some of them not relevant. So we went for all 8 of them. And looking at the 8, starting with AI, big data, 3D printing, additive manufacturing, integration, simulation and all, we came up with 6 projects that can encompass all these 8 pillars and implement these 8 pillars. So it was very interesting. It was very nice. The first presentation with the management, they were, I think I saw them, their mouths smiling a little bit because they know that the cost will be 4.365 million. So that was a great reason for them to reject us. So yes, I think digital transformation is definitely a way forward, but we may need to be careful on how we want to approach it. Start off with a small lighthouse project, eventually what we did in a small line, coming to a model that is sustainable, which is developing in-house skills and talent to be able to do our own digital transformation in-house. So that with a good, a small investment, with a good headline, with identifying the team, I think that actually win over the management. But even so, even whatever said, it took us 2 years. Started all this talk in 1.7, we were already very exposed to it. 1.8 is when we started the introduction, and it took us 2.18, 2.19, sorry, I miscalculated, 1.8, 1.9, 2021. It took us 3 to 4 years just to be able to get our first project out. So Dr. Chua, it was not easy. It took time. And for us, our method was actually to make sure that we have done everything right first. Shopfloor is already clean and nice, and we've already maximized our resources. Then we talk about investment to bring it further. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Loong. I think that is a very, very good sharing in the sense where, it did take some time for you to actually go through, that journey and experience of proposing with your management and starting from a big budget, right? A big budget proposal. Now you have actually narrowed down to lighthouse projects or proof of concepts whereby immediate results could sort of motivate future investments from the company. So Mr. Loong, when you started to go on the journey of developing the system in-house, right? How do you assemble your team? Do you have a specific criteria when you started to assemble your team, the project leaders, the engineers, the technical people? What is the background that you were looking at? How did you sort of come up with that team to drive this project?
Yeah, it's a nice thing to have a Teh Tarik session with Dr. Shen, Dr. Chua. Because he knows the pinpoints, so he knows where to poke where it's painful. Okay, so again, soalan bocor, so I will continue on. So, I think what actually convinced the management was actually the plan to do in-house talent development. So let's go a little bit about this first before we go on the selection of team. Yeah? So first, consultant project success, sure, most of the time can. Because consultants have done it, multiple times, and for them it's because they develop the system, they just yoko ten or just snowball the system over, and then you have to follow the system. Remember that, you have to follow the system, not they follow you, right? And then speedy implementation, everything is ready. It's a black box. Bring in, plug and play, settle, But it really gives you a black box. And what is in the black box? Even if you open it, you don't know what's inside. Customizable? No way. You better follow his way. Otherwise, the black box doesn't work. Sustainable? Buy more black boxes, spend more money, and is that sustainable? Yes. Now, if you do it in-house, this purely in-house, it's definitely customizable because you have actually developed the hardware and the software yourself. Sustainable? Yes. If you can keep and maintain the talent, yes, I believe so. But it is a very long journey. If you were to start scratch, it's a very long journey. Project success? you wouldn't know, because along the journey, you may lose some resources. People may leave and so on. You may not be able to continue with it. Now, hence we develop our hybrid method. Our hybrid method is still using a consultant, but the consultant is not to come up with the black box, but the consultant is to train us, guide our internal team so that we are able to do the job ourselves. So what this means is, it's a good combination of all four of them, which you can get everything in. And this is what we call as our in-house development, of MOS, our in-house talent development program, which gives you project success, speedy implementation, customizable, sustainable, and ability to be able to Yokoten. Here, I would like to say a little bit about this customizable and the data integrity area. We found that in the beginning, everything seems simple, right? If you press this button, start measuring my availability. If you start the button, start measuring my performance. If you press this button, you start to minus off the rejection. But things are not that simple. In the line, there are multiple angles and multiple things that people can do. So I would like to take an example. To measure changeover, obviously, if it's in the stamping equipment, when the bolster carrying the tooling is changed over, obviously that you press the button, the bolster come over, it's changed over time, right? It's very straightforward. But when we started collecting data, we realized that we see that there are changeover that happens in a few seconds. That is not possible. Industry practice, even as bad as a single minute exchange of die is less than 1 minute. No possible in the 2-3 seconds you can get there. And then when we go into more detail, looking at CCTV, track back to the specific time, we see that, he pressed once, bolster started to move, he stopped it because there was a small piece of scrap at the end that he quickly, being very accountable, reliable, he quickly went in to take out the scrap and then moved the bolster back and started all over again. So these are things that being customizable, being able to customize and change your program yourself helps you. Because when we work with a system integrator or a consultant, you can sit down and think of all the scenarios for them to prepare. But let's be frank, there's a period of time which you need to go through, and there's a period of time where funny things can happen. And we as the programmers, or we as the providers for this, need to have a check and balance. So in this case, what we did is you need to have a button of the changeover plus a certain period of time only do we consider as a changeover. This is a very similar concept of push buttons. Whenever you want to start a hydraulic process transmission, it's never one button, it's always two buttons for safety purposes. 2 hands are there. The second one is to make sure that it is a truly not an accidental press button. So it's data integrity. It's something that it's not spoken of during implementation, but when you do implement it, you actually feel all the scenarios coming in. So that's what we talk about in-house development. So coming back to the question, team selection. I think in any project, once you have a project, the obvious or the normal way would be, okay, let's get representatives from each department. So we had 6 slots to train. We got in maintenance 2, production 2, and engineering 2, process engineering 2. So we had 6 people, very happy, they started the training. Along the way, we realized that you cannot just select people based on the process of the department, because what is important for a programmer actually is their interest. They must be interested to be able to sit down, do programming, and they must have a certain aptitude to be able to think structurally, be able to think of all the scenarios, be able to plot up the scenarios, be able to do flow charts and so on. So it is actually not for everyone, especially if in our case, we are taking people from the line. It's not for everyone. They have to be selected. As I mentioned, Dr. Shen knows where to put the pin to make it more to the areas that were sensitive and painful. Out of the 6 that came out, they all passed. However, those strong ones, there's only 2 out of 6. So I would recommend future team selection to be tested in terms of interest, ensure that they have ability to do flow charting, ability to do simple programming before you actually start and recruiting them into team selection. Hey, Dr. Chua, did I answer your question?
Yep. Answered very well, Mr. Loong. Thank you very much for that. It's really important, I believe, that in any organization or any project that we do, interest and aptitude is very, very important. But I also think that, for many industries, that we have met, there are not many, strong programmers in every company, right? And in this case, when they went through the training program that we have provided in terms of the low code or no code kind of programming methodology that we have, shared with your team and have trained them, do you feel that, your team that may have not come from a programming background, could they actually cope, with this platforms, and it sort of accelerates that digitization process for your project?
The software node rate that you use, it's actually a drag and drop. It's actually quite simple. Hence, that's why all 6 pass. But I think passing and understanding and able to do probably is not tough. I think it's a very good program. Really being just, even when we look for the sensor, the temperature, the height sensor, and so on, we just need to be able to find a sensor that has its own module inside the node rate, which we can just drag it and drop it. I don't need to program the sensor, it's already pre-programmed. Even same, the CCTV, maybe I did not mention this, the CCTV is also node rate CCTV. So when you buy the CCTV, I just plug and then put it into the flow chart, and then I can use it. But of course, Shan, unfortunately, I still believe interest is very important. You are able to do out the flow chart, fine. But charting it is easy. But when you come to scenarios, just now I explained, you really need the interest and the aptitude to sit down and think, what went wrong? What can we do about it? What is the check and balance that we have to make sure that, the data integrity is there. Otherwise, rubbish in, rubbish out means when there's rubbish out, we will be hopping at the wrong things. Without clear data, it's very difficult to get to a root cause. We'll be only looking at symptoms.
Yep. That's good, Mr. Loong. And I think that, the next question that probably many people will have in mind as well, right? Like now you have an initial investment that you have invested in your team and also invested in this first project. So the next question that many people will probably wonder, right? For your next project or for your next, progression, right? Do you foresee that investments would be in a similar kind of costing scenario? Or do you see that you have to actually spend more? Because you talk about Yoko 10, right? And I think that you took the best practice from this project, and now you're going to deploy it to other sites. Do you see that it will be exponentially more expensive? Or do you think that, the cost will sort of remain the same? And, because you have people trained, it's more of just, duplicating the system. Yeah.
I think hardware-wise, there's no more trial and error. We roughly know what we need to buy. So that is quite similar already. In terms of talent, I think fortunately for SHRDC, as I mentioned, from 6 we only got 2. So we still need to find more talents. So there will still be some talent development. But however, once you have already fixed few talents, maybe 6 to 8 people who are already skilled and have the ability to Yoko 10, I think that's when it's sort of like a one-off thing, it's non-repeatable after that. So after that, maybe the next project, when our next Yoko 10 is also on either RPS, we intend to send in another 6 for training. And after that, I think that will stop. Not to say that will stop. That would be enough, sufficient skills and talents at the point of time. And after that, for every project that we Yoko 10, it's just a hardware cost. So, it's in a way that I understand what Dr. Chua is trying to say, trying to point out is actually it's a one-off cost, a more painful one-off cost, but by developing it internally, the skills and knowledge is all retained internally. So I think, it's probably going to be a one-off. In our case, 2 rounds because we made a mistake in the first 6. So we're going to do it again, and hopefully we don't make the same mistake again.
No problem, Mr. Loong. Thank you very much. On our side, we're definitely always ready to support you and your team. No problem at all. So on the, I think what people will really want to know as well is that, you have done that digitization of this process. You have have a very clear roadmap. What are the results that you started to see after you implemented this project? Because a lot of times, people start to think that, oh, Industry 4.0, I need to do it large scale. I need to invest millions to start, and then only I will start to see results. But you started with a smaller project, right? Do you start to see immediate results? Do you start to be able to visualize gaps that are available? And how was this beneficial for your team?
We carefully selected the areas to start off with the POC, proof of concept, on the lighthouse. We selected what we call pacemakers. Normally in the lean organization, you have pacemakers who determines what is the tag time, what's the customer order. So we carefully selected this pacemaker. Now that we have completed with this pacemaker, we realized that the upstream people are struggling. So you can see that this area, instead of working 6 days, we've actually completed within 5 days. And the 6th day, this group of people, due to the inavailability of resources now, is moved to other areas to work. So I think it's a very clear indicator that it worked. But I have to stress again, digital transformation is not a silver bullet. It's not the magic pill. It only provides you the data. You have to work on the data. We had a team that's actually on the shop floor to work out. For us, good thing, this digital transformation project lasted through the NCO, where we actually stopped our plant for 2.5 months. That was when we had a lot of time to do a lot of brainstorming, a lot of testing, and even training the workers during NCO through for us, we use Teams, we use Zoom, and so on, to actually train them and then prepare their mindset for reopening. And when we reopened, that was actually when we full implementation of what we put. And the results was, I think we're very happy with the results. We achieved our target within the month. I think that was very good. We achieved our target within the month, and now we're going to move on to the next project. So it exposed, like what Dr. Chua said, we have cleared one bottleneck, it exposed other bottlenecks. So it's opportunity for us to actually look at that.
All right, that's really good, Mr. Loong, and I think that your journey is definitely going to be very, very exciting moving forward. And with that, I don't think that I have much more questions to ask in the Teh Tarik, or else I will take too much time and not give more questions from the floor and participants here present today. So I have questions that are coming from the floor. So Mr. Loong, maybe these questions won't be soalan bocho anymore.
Well, yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chua. And thank you so much, Mr. Loong. So it looks like we have Miss Afika who raised her hands already. Miss Afika, if you don't mind, general rule for everybody. All right. So before you ask the questions, please introduce yourselves as well, so we know where you're coming from, and then we can proceed and we can take it from there. All right. Thank you very much, Afika. Can you please ask your questions away, please?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Afika from Plastic Industries, Tanjung Berhad. Thank you so much for thank you so much for the great presentation, Mr. Loong and Dr. Chua. So I have 2 questions. The first one is just now you mentioned on you said actually the sharing part where you said the shop floor has to be clean first, you mentioned. So there's this lean principle that you implemented lah. But because you know how we always introduce lean, but at the end of the day, it's about monitoring or enforcement of this monitoring everything, right? And that thing doesn't happen. It's hard to actually monitor when things are introduced. People just go back to the old ways, right? So, and we as an organization, it's hard to wait until this thing becomes perfect first before we start introducing digitalization, no? So I want to ask your view, how do you balance these two lah? Okay, and then the second question is, I think this is a repetition because I was in between meetings just now and I wanted to reconfirm again on the team selection. So just now you said the first 6 because you actually took from all different departments. That one because they don't really have the interest and aptitude, then it doesn't go well. Whereas the other 6 because you actually selected based on interest, I guess. That's the important part, is it? Sorry, because I was in between meetings just now, so I just want to reconfirm that. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Shen, let me answer the first question.
Of course, of course. All yours. No
all right.
problem.
So if you see the lean journey that we had, first is LPS. LPS is talking about developing your own strategic map. So where you want to go. So that's the first part, is the planning part. We have step 1, step 2, and step 3. Right? We implemented step 1, which we cover 5S, visualization, standard work chart, and so on. Right. So that's step 1. That normally works because it's top down. Remember, I said top down. So a little bit of policing will do. Of course, when I say clean, I don't actually mean clean. Following the 5S rule, you know, everything that you need to use daily must be within the 3-meter scope. You know, everything that you use weekly, it will be in the next one, and then there'll be the race spot zone and so on. So, you know, in that manner, tidy. But what to make it sustainable? Like, I think we feel the same as you. You know, making and forcing them to be able to remember and do it every day is not easy. So that's why we need to move into the second level. Second level is where we talk about bottom up, where you start to encourage Teyan's small suggestions and so on. But in order to do that, that's where we had difficulty. Moving into the second phase, we find that there's not enough data, not enough visibility for the worker. The worker doesn't even know how many he produces. There's a number there, you know, but sometimes depending on the strokes, but not how many parts, you know, how fast their cycles, they can't see them. So you're asking a person to run, but you're asking the person to run at 10 kilometers per hour, but you don't tell him what is his speed now. There's no way for him to improve. So I think I did put in its visibility. Visibility is important for both shop floor decision making. Operational shop floor decision making is not only for us, it's also for the worker. Sometimes, as being a human being, I'm never consistent. I may in the morning be a little bit faster, you know, towards the afternoon, a bit tired, you know, I slow down a bit, but I'm able to see where I am going. I am able to see where I am, and hence I am able to make corrections on my own. So that is a bottom-up approach. So hence, visualization on the shop floor is very important for that. So and hence we did knock into the wall where we tried the second step, you know, it's not, we can't go any further. So we had to move into using an enabler, digital transformation, to show the worker what's happening. You know yourself, you know, I'm sure every worker, my belief is every worker who comes to work wants to do good, wants to achieve their target. I don't believe there's one worker who comes to work to say, no, today I've decided not to achieve the target. I don't think that happens. But it's us not able to give them the right information to do well. So with digital transformation, at this point of time, I see the workers are motivated. They can see where they're going. They're motivated. They know what is important. And at the end of the day, they know that if the company does well as well, you know, it all comes back one round. So I think that is the first part. Policing can do as much, you know. You can't do further. You need bottom-up activities. The second part, oh, sorry, Shen, you want to add on something on the first part?
No, I'm all good, Mr. Loong. Yep, don't worry. I think can continue the second part. No issue.
Just a clarification. Team selection. We've only had the first project. We did the normal way of pulling people from the departments, you know. Then after that, training them, and of course, out of 6, only 2. All of them passed. You know, all of them know how to do the job. But the difficulty level is a bit different. So only 2 is good, and they're successful. They are able to build a lot of programs on that. Moving forward, we haven't tested yet, but we believe besides selecting them from the relevant department, you can't select from someone from another place, a relevant department, we also need to test their interests and their attitude. We actually have already embarked on selecting the next team. We have now outline 3 persons who's relevant in that area, and they have mentioned they have interest. So now what we are trying to do is, because we already know what node rate is all about, we are going to do some internal tests to see whether they have a suitable thinking to be able to do that job. So we want to do a few more invigorating tests before we send them for training. Otherwise, they will suffer in the training, and we will not be able to get the outcome that we want. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Afika.
Yep, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Afika, for the great question. So in between, right? So there's another question from Miss Lee Peng, right? So maybe to Mr. Loong as well. Is there any section within your factory were you unable to digitize?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, if you look at our initial map, it's generally most of the equipment. My opinion, every equipment you are definitely able to digitize, whether being it a legacy equipment you can digitize. The question is, how deep an information can you get out? So example, in the hydraulic press, one of the reasons why we choose hydraulic press is we know to collect OE, I only need 5 points of sensor. That is when we start the on-off, CNC on-off, and then we start the 2 push button to indicate the stroke is there. That's for performance. We have a counterbalance second button for the performance, and then we have the changeover button, the booster change, and also the quality button. This 5 data is already enough to give us OEE. But if you digitize it for the purpose of predictive maintenance, big data analysis and analytics, that will be different. That will require the equipment to be able to send more detailed information, example, temperatures of the oil, temperatures of the equipment, flow rate of the oil, even ambient temperature, and things like this. So digitizing it to the OE level, I don't see an issue. But it will depend on the machine-to-machine basis, machine-to-machine, whether you can go further to actually do big data or not. So that I hope I answered your question. Not a very straightforward answer, it's still dependent on the equipment. But I guess you've got to explore. But no harm starting off with OE first. My belief is any equipment has an OE. No harm starting with that, and then from then, once you have your first experience, then you can think about going deeper. Yeah, I think Dr. Chua, you may want to add on to this. Yeah.
Yep. I think most important is always understanding your process and always understanding your system. And I think by knowing your process well and what are your key measurables, picking data from machines are not difficult. Yeah, in some circumstances, right? And with the right sensor technology, with the right understanding of how your machine behaves, then you can immediately see where to extract data from, right? And we do also have situations where some stations or some assembly lines are purely manual, right? They are purely manual. They write on pieces of paper, and it's a simple digitization would just be put a tablet maybe and just have buttons on the tablet and just press, right? So that sort of also helps you to collect some form of data, and it's better to have something rather than nothing digitized, right? We want to avoid having pen and paper. Someone collect at the end of the day, the guy has to key in all the data in the Excel sheet the next day. Yeah, and that's sort of going to be very, very tricky. Of course, eventually, I think like what Mr. Loong mentioned about predictive maintenance and all these details, having the access to your data is very, very important, right? And data integrity, knowing your system well enough will help you to make the right predictive maintenance strategy moving forward. Yeah, just sharing a few opinions from my side.
Just to add on, I think most data integrity, since Shen mentioned it, we found that was difficult. Most data needs a check and balance. So hence our CCTV, we installed it is to confirm, it is not monitoring the worker, how long he's been standing, how long he's been drinking, how long he goes to the toilet. It's not for that purpose. It's a check and balance to see that when there's a drop in the data, we can actually, because it's linked, the CCTV is linked to the node rate, it immediately be able to see the viewing of that point, what happened. So then we can actually take, we get real data rather than things that we guess and data is corrupted. So having a check and balance system is important for me.
Good. Thank you very much. So there's another question from the participants. I think this one will be on the lighthouse projects. But let me elaborate or rather expand that question a bit as well. So sometimes in consultation with some of our clients, right, they always ask about this lighthouse project. All right. So how did you all identify your lighthouse project? All right, and how do you from after you identify, then how do you motivate your team as well? Because your team will be, I'm sure, will be busy as well with the day-to-day activities within the factory. So how do you motivate them to make sure it can count team?
Okay, for us, lighthouse project, sorry, we used it loosely, but anyway, it's a lighthouse project. We are very focused, okay, in terms of production planning, in terms of lean. The first thing that when you want to fulfill customer is always understanding the customer demand. Hence, coming up with a tag time. I think that would be for a different story, but anyway, the general knowledge should be identifying the tag time, and from the tag time, you'll be able to count the pacemaker. The pacemaker is the person, the area of the process that determines how fast production should do, whether it's whether it's upstream, downstream. So he is the person who sets the pace. So pacemaker, if you improve the pacemaker, then you will, if you're using pool production, then you expose other gaps. So hence for us to choose the area for digitizing, the first area that we want, it has to be one of our pacemakers. And for us, highest value, most problem, that was the one that we looked at. So for us, it was very clear, that was the one that's giving us, that will be giving us a higher value. That's the one that we are having issues fulfilling customers. So that's where we ended up in. I think the second part of the question, sorry, what was the second part of the question again?
How do you keep them motivated?
Oh yes. Well, I would like to say we bought about 20 whips, but it doesn't work in these days. It doesn't work in these days. I think a lot of training is required. There's a lot of information flow to them is important. So hence, I was saying that during the MCO, we were very fortunate. We actually bought all the hardware, we prepared the softwares, we actually launched it in, and then at that point of time, came MCO. So we had these 2.5 months to sort of brainwash, to sort of inform our workers, to sort of train our workers. When we restart, what's going to happen? In fact, we did a relayout. It's not so much on digital transformation, but when we look at the digital transformation project, we wanted to do a model line, the lighthouse line. So we relay out, we repainted certain areas, lines, so to identify clear work in progress, clear material storage, clear tools storage, and so on. So we read it, and I think to create a very pleasant working place. So when they started work after MCO, of course, during MCO, we did a lot of training, tell them, we inform them that there's a new layout. These are things that you're supposed to do. The WI for each operator is done up again, and translated to 4 languages because of the foreign workers, we have to do that with them. And then for foreign workers, we even got them in for half a day in the plant to actually talk to them, train them, and so on. So when we started off with a new environment, with a model line, with all the equipment in place, I believe the workers felt that it's a bottom-up activity. They felt that whatever pains that they had, we listened, and whatever pains that they have, we have already incorporated in. And the management's role is actually to support them and to help them clear their barriers. So, as I again mentioned earlier, I don't believe workers would come into line with the intention of sabotaging you, with the intention of not achieving target. All of them wants and loves a pat on the back. And how do they get a pat on the back? Is when they will hit their target. And if they can hit their target with us giving the support required, giving them a nice layout, giving them a visualization, a pace that they can follow, optimum working range. I'm sure everyone will be motivated. I hope everyone will be motivated. Okay, maybe Dr. Chua, you want to add on to this?
Yep, I think most important is to always have the interest of improving daily, right? Especially even for us when we started to work with new technologies to help many companies, we also keep on developing new things, keep on finding out new ways, to improve, to help many companies. So I think with the right motivation to the team, and as they continue to work with new tech, empower them to work on this kind of projects, I think the staff will remain motivated. Should be no problem.
Thank you so much, Mr. Loong, and of course, Dr. Chua. Since there are no questions yet from the floor, so let me ask a very let's put it this way. For those who are not sure about lean management or not very familiar with lean management here, what is yokoten?
Yokoten. Yokoten is actually a Japanese term. If you see any structured problem solving, the last step, standardization, and then followed by yokoten. You standardize your work eyes and so on. Yokoten is seeing opportunity where you can actually practice this new knowledge into another area. So it could be within the same area, or it could be a different process and so on. So it's like snowballing, it's like duplication and so on.
Okay. All right, cool. Thank you so much.
No problem.
So if there's not any questions, then we just.
Hi, Kenneth.
Hi.
Hi, Roland here.
Hello. Hi.
Roland from Malaysian Rubber Board.
Hi, Roland.
How are you, Dr. Chua? Hi, Kenneth. Hi, Mr. Loong. Thank you so much
Hi.
for your very detailed presentation. I totally agree with you that me and Dr. Chua, to ensure the success of the project, it's all come back to the personnel who are involved, especially the leader who are championing the project. So a big clap to you, Mr. Loong, for leading your company for this in-house project. I understand that you're trying to optimize your process flow, your production flow. Say that in 3 years down the road, you have managed to maximize or having a very lean process flow in your production line. Is there any other angle that you think that you will look into in terms of the IR4 elements that can bring significant growth to your company?
Okay, with this, you actually have given me an opportunity to share screen again.
Perfect.
I'm quite proud of this small little picture that I've done. Okay. My belief is we do not stop at equipment base and process base. We have to look at the human base. If we can create what we call as troops of manufacturing assistants, workers who are accountable, I think that's important, of course, but equipped with knowledge and information, they can do well. So what we mean is repetitive manual work moving into the future of a multi-skill worker, process improvement, even more automation skills. So what we're talking about is a general worker with process improvement. That means he has been taught, perhaps even doing the SWC standard work chart, SWCT, doing IE time study, taught with this information with technical skills, minor, not to say maintenance repair, but at least understanding the settings, parameters, tooling, robots, and they will become an MA. And this is the troop that we are trying to develop. Not very successful yet, but this is an area that I believe that we want to do. We want to empower the workers. We want to let the workers perform well by supporting them. If we do that, I think we would have a sustainable business. A business is not about just creating the product. It's not about the product. It's about having the resources, maximizing the resources, having a sustainable resource to be able to continuously produce good product. It's not just one product, it's continuous good product. And I don't believe in policing. I can have many I can have many QCs, QIs, quality inspector, quality controller, but that is a cost of quality which I think is not well spent. better is to upskill the worker, better is to train the worker, better is to empower the worker, and then make them accountable. Of course, everyone have to be accountable at times. So if they are well trained, I hope that we will reach this at one stage. Yeah, Roland, I hope that I have answered part of your question. Maybe Dr. Chua will want to chip in.
Very well said.
Yep, I think Mr. Loong, you covered a lot of areas already. No problem.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. Loong.
Thank you, Roland, for the question. So I think there's a question relating as well to the to your staff, Mr. Loong. So according to T Singh, right? Yeah. So his question would be, say, assuming with all the improvements made and assuming the shop floor workers are being heard out as well and getting paid as well at the same rate, right? Would there be an increase in job satisfaction among them?
We haven't gone to the stage of measuring job satisfaction, but I believe there's one thing that we do realize when we listen to the workers. A lot of workers are talking about work-life balance now. Historically, let's say if you're in the plastic industry, injection machines are made to run 24 hours. They are made to run 365 days, because every time you down the barrel material, it goes to waste. Even in our site, electrode deposition, you have to continuously circulate the paint, even there's no production. So the cost is always variable cost is minimal. Let's put it there. There are many semi-variable, so it's a cost to the company. But however, listening to the workers, they now tend to want to have a work-life balance. So historically, working on 7 days a week doesn't work anymore. Even working on 6 days a week, even with overtime pay, doesn't work anymore. So actually, if you, of course, it's a company project. One of the project outcomes is actually to reduce the Saturday, Sunday work for them. Why? It's not that we don't want to pay overtime. We rather pay them higher to work efficiently on Monday to Fridays. Variable costs that we can save, example, electricity, water, that we can save, and then we can pass it back to them. So that is one thing that we want to do. So far in that line, we have achieved the target. However, unfortunately, our headcount is still low. So on Saturday, we still ask them to come back and give them other jobs. So that is, well, if you say that whether they're satisfied or not, I'm unable to answer you. I think we have to do a happiness test or a happiness survey to find that out. But I do, personally, I feel that when I walk by the line, when I cross the line, I don't see them unhappy. I see them working at a pace that is sustainable. Because if we don't have enough data, we are unable to find a optimal working range for them. My expectation for them will be 60 pieces an hour, but a normal human being be using most in industrial engineering, you know that the optimal working range is between 45 to 50. And hence, I'm overstressing them, I'm overloading even from Yamazumi chart. When you do the charting of it, you will see that they're overstressed. But if I don't have data, I'm unable to set optimal working range for them. And if you are able to set optimal working range with them without overly stressing themselves, I think they work. I think they will be happy working. But sorry, I still cannot answer the question on whether they are satisfied, whether there are any further clauses. Not at this point. Maybe I'll take note of that. Maybe we can get HR to do a happiness test or maybe a survey just to check in with them to see, before and after, what's the feeling like and so on.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Loong. So I think there's one last question. So if there's no other question, then we'll wrap it up with that last question. But I'm not sure what does Chi Sing really mean here, right? He says something about pointers on how we can actually look at lean manufacturing. I would assume, Chi Sing, if you can unmute yourself, maybe you want to elaborate on your question a bit. What do you mean by pointers on lean manufacturing? Because I think lean manufacturing on its own is a huge topic on its own, right? Chi Sing, are you still there? Okay, so maybe Mr. So to take a, if you want to take that question, Mr. Loong, maybe you can give.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Hi, Mr. Loong. I'm Chisek from Elephant 500. We are a plastic film manufacturer. So yeah, referring to the question as in like, lean manufacturing. Yes, I do agree with Kenneth that, this is a very, very broad topic. Just wanted Mr. Loong to share with us your experience as your journey as in like, how you start looking, like how you started the journey. Yeah, that's basically my question. So where you start, from where and things like that.
Okay. Then I will hold on.
Opportunity to share screen again, Mr. Loong.
Yes. You see, engineer being engineer, that's what we are like. We just don't go and blah, we have to have some data behind to tell what's happening. Okay, let me bring you to this. Okay. For us, starting the lean, I think first it has to be top down. Like it or not, it has to be top down. The first step is always top down. So if we have, if the management is strong enough and they want enough lean, then it has to be implemented on the entire company. See, even here, this is actually an extract from a Japanese document. Top management decides to introduce lean. See, it's top down. Step one is top down. So hence, development of lean here. And then once you have passed doing the framework for lean, second step is also top down. Very unfortunate, this part, it's still very top down. Identifying the 7 ways, you still need to come in, decide, and then implement. And this is where I think just now Afrika was asking, being top down means there'll be a lot of policing. I entirely agree with you. There'll be a lot of policing. There will be a lot of hard work here. Hence, you can see that we started in 1.5. Actually, end of 1.4, we started developing the framework. 1.5, we implemented it. Until 1.8, we have just, after 3 years, we have more or less completed this area. More or less completed with a lot of policing. But we know it's not sustainable. So hence, we have to move to the next stage where we need to have bottom-up activity and expand further into step 2, which are the rest of this. Okay. The company has to be, the management has to be resolute. Sometimes being lean means doing excessive work. My experiences in plastic injection. Plastic injection, there's an issue that you need to deal with is oil. Oil is everywhere. Unfortunately, injection, once you change the tooling, there will be 5 to 7 pieces of rejection. So material will be everywhere. It's not easy, but that's where you need to spend the extra time. First 5 minutes to clear up, clean up, and make everything visual. We always like to say, everything has its place and everything in its place. That is very important. Right? We have our 5S rules, and this being one of them. Everything has its place, everything in its place. Have shadow boards whatsoever, just put everything back in order. So every time that a tool is being used, every time it's being used, it is where it's supposed to be. And with that arrangement, with that layout arrangement, it first highlights what are the issues being held. So example, if you know that 5-7 pieces is a standard for, depending on the injection, 5-7 pieces is standard for this machine, you would have a rejection pit there that can fit 5 to 7, because if it overflows, that is the indicator to say, hey, something is wrong. Is it a material problem? Is it a machine problem? Is it a man problem? So my usage of 5S is for this. Even in my plant now, I'm not injection stamping. I have whip control. I will ask the engineers, when you design the layout, whip, how do you decide you need 4 pallets there? Give me your calculation. Tell me what's the rationale behind it. So when it overflows, I know there's a problem. When there's too few, I know there's a problem. So this is, once you do 5S, visual controls here, visual management is easy. So that I guess is the basic. If you don't get past these two, it's very tough to go forward. Even if you go tough forward, it's just touching the surface. So my advice, please focus 2 to 3 years minimum doing this. After that, then you can talk about empowering the workers, having a bottom-up activity. Of course, but that is my opinion, my experience. It may differ from industry to industry, area to area, human to human, and so on. Right? Okay. I hope that I answered your question, Chising.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Loong.
Fantastic. So it's been a very eventful morning, actually, very inspiring as well. If they, sorry, so we can't take any more questions because I think it's been, we want to keep it short and sweet, all right? So Mr. Loong and Dr. Chua, and I think a lot of us also need to go back to work as well at the same time. All right, so what I'll do is I'll just give a quick summary of what has happened so far. It is indeed very inspiring to hear this story from Mr. Loong, all right? How he moved forward as well, and how AGP actually started off. So it took maybe about 4 years to actually get management to possibly really move forward, all right, with implementing a smart factory program. Although it's not a very big implementation, but that small location where the stamping line, that was actually a quick win, I think, eventually for the whole company. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Loong. So what is interesting is, so instead of having the black box that a lot of people do not want to hear, but you have a gray box where you can actually edit it as well, and you can actually customize it at any one time, provided of course you have the proper training. And this is where SHRDC, together with the Malaysian Smart Factory, including us, if you have any questions about training and the training programs that the Malaysian Smart Factory has, please do contact us and we can give it to you as soon as possible. Now, what is interesting as well is the journey, I assume, was about 4 years long, but I assume, Mr. Loong, that it was worth every minute of it. Of course, the first 3 years is not very interesting, but this past year, I think, was very interesting because you see a lot of improvement towards that particular line. All right. What is interesting is the team selection as well. I think it is very important. I think Afika asked one question, about team, whether the person really require a full engineering background and so on and so forth. So as long as from what I understand so far is, as long as that person, he may not be an engineer, so to speak, but I think if he understands process flow, the flow chart and programming, right, I think you can do most of the work that you need to do. And last but not least, it would be talents. I have been hearing this word since the day one I've been working with Dr. Chua, including today as well. I think it was mentioned several times. So moving forward, all right, it is also very important that every individual here, including to your companies as well, that maybe a talent management program or talent sustainable development would be very cost effective here moving forward. Right? But so this is just our suggestions. It may not be, if it resonates with you, please do contact us. All right. So with that, I would like to invite Mr. So I will give the floor to Dr. Chua first, all right, to give his last shout outs. All right. And then eventually Mr. Loong to give his last few words of advice. Dr. Chua.
All right. Thank you very much, Kenneth. I think this morning has been a very, very exciting sharing session from Mr. Loong. And it's always a great, it's always a great journey and experience, whenever we see many industries that we work with to be very successful in their journey. And we definitely thank Mr. Loong and his team, for going on this journey with us. And we definitely hope to support more and more industries in this space, to start their journey. I think the most difficult step is always the first step, right? And it's always the hardest step. But once you get your foot in it, and you start that first step, and slowly walk your way through, eventually you will start running. So I think this is some of the key takeaways. So I would always encourage everyone to start as soon as you can, right? And if you have any questions, we are always there to support you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chua. Mr. Loong.
I think my last words here, I would like to repeat again, digital transformation is not a silver bullet. It's not a silver bullet. It's not the magic pill that you can take and then you become a superhero. Digital transformation is part, in our case, we started lean. It's when we start hitting the wall, when we do not have sufficient data, we do not have visibility of data, then digital transformation comes as an enabler to provide us data and live data, continuous speed, so that we can make proper decisions, do better current situation analysis, do better root cause analysis, and eventually develop the solutions that's necessary. So, don't be fooled that, you install CCTVs, you install the gateway power supply, and your problem goes away. I'm so sorry. It gives you data, it just tells you what is the issue, it just points you in the right direction. But to take the step, it's you. So for us, I'm lucky that we have a good pioneering 6-group team. Those who are not attuned to programming did the rest of the work. I think good job to them as well. A lot of analysis was done, a lot of troubleshooting, shop floor activity was done to get to where we are for that line. I hope everyone will have the same happy journey like us. Like Kenneth said, the first 3 years was a bit, you're in a cave where you can't see the light, you just got to move and turn until you see the light. Once we see the light, if I agreed on things like that, and I think moving on is nice, it's good. It's very fulfilling. It's nice to know, and even at my level, it's nice to know that I have a good area which I can depend on, which I have full control on. And for the business, it's definitely helpful. My recommendation is, I think like what Chi-Sing asked, where and how to start. Focus on your pacemakers. That's your starting point. Once you clear your pacemakers, then if you're practicing full production system, you will expose all the other gaps. Once you expose the gaps, remember, in lean is we are not here to point out the problem. We are here to understand the problem and solve the problem. I keep telling my staff, I'm not here to say who's right, who's wrong. I'm here to see what is the issue and what support and how do I help you clear the area. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you for having me, Kenneth, Dr. Chua, and for all the participants. Thank you for staying with us for what? More than an hour now, yeah?
More than an hour and a half, yeah.
I hope I didn't bore you down.
Thank you so much, Mr. Loong. So for a quick word of advertisement first, all right? So if you don't mind, I'll share some screen here. All right, so in the month of December, so SHRDC has some courses coming up, all right? So if you wish, please do send us an email and those kind of things, or even send us a WhatsApp or nowadays it's all about WhatsApp. Or if you can, then actually call us as well. No problems, don't worry. All right. Lastly, so to wrap up okay, so last but not least, so we have a YouTube channel as well. All right. So for those of you who would like to get to know Mr. Loong better as well, more intimately, maybe get what we call it just now, soalan, bocho, and those kind of things, right? So maybe you can actually subscribe to the YouTube channel. So if you don't mind, so you can actually scan it, subscribe it today, of course, but today's session won't be coming up so early. What we'll do is we'll do a bit of touch up here and there and those kind of things, make sure Dr. Chua and Mr. Loong looks a bit more handsome, and then we can proceed from there. All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. So just a quick 2-3 words. I think Mr. Loong says it all right with Dr. Chua. So identify your pacemakers. A lot of times it's a top-down approach. Eventually, it will move up towards a down-up approach. All right. We are not here to pinpoint problems or make the person a scapegoat, if I understand correctly, but we are here to understand and solve the problem. All right. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.